Okay. Today we are on the 9th secret of success and inner peace. What are some of the things that we can do to experience success in our life and to experience peace in our life? There are some things that we can do. And that's what these 9 different things have been. And the 9th one today is treasure your divinity. And I've told this story before, but I'm going to tell it again because I read a story once about a minister who kept doing the same sermon over and over and over again. And finally his congregation said something. It's like, what, do you realize you're saying the same thing over and over again? And he said, yes, I keep saying it over and over again until you get it. Because we don't often get it the first time. Or do you ever notice if you've read a spiritual book that you might read it and then you do some spiritual growth and you read it again, it's like a totally different book. You've noticed things you didn't notice before. I've experienced that. There are some books I've read over and over and over again. And each time I read them, as I progress up the spiritual ladder, or spiritual growth, it's actually a spiral, the book seems new. There's so many things that I've missed the first time or just didn't understand the first time. And now I get it. But anyway, there was an old Hindu legend that said, there was a time when all men were gods, but they abused their divinity. So Brahma, the head god, said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to take away that divinity and I'm going to hide it where man will never find it. And so we called the council of the lesser gods, wanting suggestions. It's like, well, that was a big question. Where are we going to hide divinity so man never finds it? So one of the lesser gods said, well, let's hide it deep inside the earth. And Brahma said, nah, I don't think that's going to work. Man will eventually dig inside the earth and find it. So another lesser god said, well, let's stick it deep down on the ocean floor. And Rama said, no, as man progresses with technology, they're going to find it deep down on the ocean floor. They'll find it. And so then one of the other lesser gods said, well, let's hide it on top of the highest mountain. And Brahma said, no, again, man will eventually find it. And so another lesser god said, I know. Let's hide it deep within man himself. He will never think of looking for it there. And so is that not true? We feel as if, so many of us feel like there is something missing in our life. And we think it might be that perfect job, that perfect relationship, or we feel like a piece of us is missing, or something's going on, we're not quite right. And it's our divinity. It's the connection to God that causes that sense of feeling like we're missing part of something. So, and that's what Jesus was about. Jesus came to show that God is within. He said that more than once. Heaven is in the midst of you. The kingdom of God is within. And there are so many people who have just a hard time understanding where to actually look for God. Albert Einstein said a lot of good stuff actually. Albert Einstein says, there are only 2 ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle, and the other is as though everything is a miracle. So what is this divinity? I always like to look words up in the dictionary just to see what the Webster's dictionary says about some of the terms that we use. So I looked up the word divinity to try and find out what divinity is. It's the quality of being divine. It's our divine nature. It represents a deity or godhood. It represents a divine being or God, a being having divine attributes, godlike character, supreme excellence, and my favorite, a fluffy white fudge made with sugar, egg whites, and often nuts. That is also divinity. Has anybody ever tasted that? I don't think I ever have. Alan Cohen who is a really famous writer, he's written some really great books, says, "Great masters neither want nor need your worship. Your greatest gift to them and yourself is to emulate their divinity by claiming it as your own." Michael Ruiz, the author of The Four Agreements, A Practical Guide to Personal Freedom, says, "You express your own divinity by being alive and by loving yourself and others. That is how we express it. Remember, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, trying to figure out what in the world are we going to do with this humanness? How are we going to navigate the planet? So we are divine creations of God. We can't be separated from our source, although we seem to be able to do that, although in reality we can't. We are a container of God. We hold God within us. Think of a drop of water. If we take a drop of water out of the ocean and we separate it from its source, it will eventually return to its source, but it will be changed. It will go back to its source through evaporation. When it's in liquid form, it's disconnected from its source, and so it has less power. You can't see a little drop of water knock over someone as they're walking into the ocean. But collectively, that big, huge wave can knock you over. And so we're the same way. When we're disconnected from source, we actually lose our spiritual power. And that's the unlimited power to create, to be alive, to be miraculous, and to experience the joy of being alive. That's what this power is. A drop of water, disconnected from its source, represents ego. And I've shared this before as well. The word ego means easing God out. E-G-O. So what is the ego? So I'm going to read from page 95. This is a book called Where There Is Light. Insight and inspiration for meeting life's challenges. Paramahansa Yogananda. This is what he has to say about a variety of, about spirituality and about ego. This is what he says about it, the ego. The ego attempts to satisfy through material channels the soul's constant, insatiable longing for God. Far from accomplishing its objective, it increases man's misery. The soul's hunger can never be appeased by indulgence of the senses. When man realizes this and masters his ego, that is, when he achieves self-control, his life becomes glorified by the awareness of divine bliss while he is still in the flesh. Then, instead of being a slave of material desires and appetites, man's attention is transferred to the heart of omnipresence, resting there forever with a hidden joy in everything. The ego, have you ever said this to yourself, and I know people have said this as they're going through life, I'm my worst enemy as I'm trying to make improvements or trying to accomplish something in life. I am my worst enemy. When we're saying that, we're talking about the ego. That ego's there and that ego's alive. What the ego says is that we're the sum total of what we do, or we're the sum total of who we are, or we're the sum total of what we have. So it also insists that we're separate and that God is out there somewhere. We're in competition with every other ego, trying to get more, do more, be more. That's the world of the ego. The ego tells us that we're separated from everything that's missing in your life. And we must spend a great deal of energy chasing or trying to find what's missing. And we never really do find it. Ego says, God is outside of you, a force to fear, just like all those external forces attempting to control you. So you beg this external force to provide you with special powers to overcome all of these other egos, who are trying so hard to snare what is rightfully yours. Ego is the world of competition. Ego has us convinced that we are separate from everyone else. We have to push, bargain, beg, whatever we have to do to get ahead of everyone else. The ego keeps us in a constant state of fear, anxiety, worry, and stress. Basically, we're not at peace with ourselves. Ego maintains our separate status from God and allows us to be terrified of our own destiny. How many people here might know, and a lot of people kind of know, they kind of have a hint of what their destiny might be or what they're here on the planet to do, and then it's like fear jumps in. Fear is ego. I'm not enough, I don't have enough money, I can't do that. That's all ego-based. So how do we embrace our divinity? By understanding that there is nowhere in the universe that God is not. God is a presence, not a person, not an entity, not a man up there like the Wizard of Oz controlling, deciding that over there in New Orleans I'm going to have a flood or a tsunami because there's homosexuality over there, or like the Westboro Baptist Church protesting at all these funerals, saying that these soldiers have died because of this, because of that. That's all ego-based. But ego is a presence. It's a presence, not ego. Oh, that's a presence too. Divinity is a presence. It's an essence, it's an energy, it's not a person. It's an essence, or it's a presence that allows us to sprout, that allows us to move the stars across the sky, that moves thoughts across our minds. This presence is everywhere. So if God is everywhere, and we say that God is omnipresent, He's not going to be everywhere but in you. He's not going to be everywhere else but in me. He's not going to be in a temple and not in a church. God is equally and everywhere present. It also includes everything that people might feel is missing in their life. Has anyone studied some of the famous Indian saints in India? Has anyone heard of Sai Baba? Well, there's some controversy about Sai Baba, but that's neither here nor there. But Sai Baba, when Sai Baba was alive, could manifest material things. They say he manifested this gold powder. He could manifest things instantly. His presence healed the sick. And people who were in the same room with him felt this like divine bliss, or this peace would come over them when they were in his presence. There's also, this man is not from India, but there's also a man called John of God. Have people heard of John of God? It's the same thing. You're in his presence. It's like, it blows you away that there is such a deep love there that you can feel. It's palpable. You can feel it. We can't be the same. We can be the same. In fact, there was a reporter who was interviewing Sai Baba, and he said, "Are you God?" Imagine someone asking you, "Are you God?" What do you think Sai Baba said? He said, "Yes, I am." After a brief pause, he added, "And so are you." The only difference between you and I is that I know it and you doubt it. We're a piece of God. We're a divine creation. We're a being of light. We showed up here on the planet at the right and perfect time. We had the right and perfect parents. We are having the right and perfect experiences. We are the beloved. We are a miracle. We're part of eternal perfection. We're a piece of divine intelligence that supports everything and everyone on this planet. I mean, think about that. Isn't that kind of exciting? It's like, whoa, I can do what Jesus did. Jesus healed the sick. There's other people on the planet right now who heal people. In a world in which divine intelligence creates everything, there are no accidents. Everything happens at the right and perfect time, in the right and perfect place. It may look like, and you might think, oh my God, what is going on? But it's still the right and perfect experience for you. Every time we feel fear, every time we feel self-rejection, every time we feel anxiety, guilt, or hate, we're denying our divinity. We've just stepped into ego and put on that coat. And we're just wandering around the universe in the state of ego. We're not God in the sense that we're above everybody else or we're better than everybody else, but in the sense of being eternally connected to the source, eternally connected to this power of love, this power of wisdom, this power of peace, this power of understanding, this power of bliss, and this power of joy. And we are able to express that in all that we think and do anytime we want to. It's just a matter of willingness, and it's a matter of treasuring our divinity and treating it like it is a treasure and sharing that treasure with the world. So I ask you now to get ready for meditation. John, could you get the lights while I refocus our video camera? Trying to get this focused on the candle. There we go. I invite you to make yourselves comfortable in your chairs. If your arms and legs are crossed, I invite you to uncross them and to allow yourself to be sitting in an open and receptive position. Open and receptive to the living spirit of truth. Open and receptive to whatever message God might have for you today. Allow the music to take you deeper within. The sounds of the ocean in the background. It's always such a soothing sound to me. Music to me is the heartbeat of the soul. I invite you to take one nice deep cleansing breath. Just breathe in as much as you possibly can and fill those lungs slowly. And then hold it. And then just let it go slowly as well. It's also a good way to calm yourself down because it's a sign for your body to relax. Now I invite you to imagine a tiny little vacuum cleaner inside your head. See yourself turning it on. And we're now cleaning out our mind and cleaning out our head of any garbage that might be in there, just kind of cleaning it up so it's nice and shiny. All negativity is being scooped up by the vacuum cleaner. So now that our mind is clear and our body is relaxed and we are open and receptive, I invite you to think of a time recently when you had the most difficult day of your life. Just think of that most difficult day, how it feels, what happened during that day. Or think of a day when you were most into ego. When you were the most anxious, the most fearful, the most unhappy. Just bring that day to mind. And I invite you to be a creator of your own life. To take that experience in that situation and re-experience it from your divinity. Go through that whole day knowing, behaving, responding, and feeling as the divine being that you are. I'll be silent for a few minutes as you go through that day as the divine being that you are. Experience what it feels like to be this divine being going through this day. Know that you can choose to be this divine being at any moment in any and all situations. It's all up to you. It's your choice. And I invite you to come back to this time and place, knowing that you are that divine being. Ready, willing, and able to be that divine expression. I'll invite you to move around a little bit in your chairs and gently open your eyes. Sometimes people do travel when they're meditating.